Today's Sports Spectrum interview was pre-recorded prior to the coronavirus outbreak.
Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sports Spectrum. I'm Jason Romano. Today's show with Joshua Gagnon, he's the pastor of Next Level Church up in New Hampshire, is brought to you by Compassion International, the most trusted child development ministry in the world. For more information about how you can help release a child from poverty, I want you to check out the website, compassion.com/sports spectrum. Compassion.com/sports spectrum. You'll see a list of children there, and then pray about sponsoring a child in Jesus' name. We're also presented by Water Mission. We love Water Mission, having them on board as a partner and sponsor with us. And right now they're working to stop the global spread of COVID-19 by providing urgently needed safe water, sanitation, and hygiene solutions to refugee settlements and other vulnerable communities. They do such great work. Check out their website, watermission.org, to learn more about the great work they're doing and pray for them. Again, the website, watermission.org. Excited to welcome Josh Gagnon to Sports Spectrum's podcast. Today, he is the lead pastor and founder of Next Level Church in New Hampshire. And he's a sports guy, played basketball in college and high school as well, but in college at Southern Vermont College, and then played in 2 pro summer leagues in Canada, tried his hand overseas, but came back to help tend to some family issues, and loves golfing now and going for runs. And he joined us. He'll tell you he was going for a run. He actually was in Florida because part of what Next Level Church is doing, and it's really amazing to watch Next Level Church. They're one of the fastest growing churches in the country, and they're growing at a large capacity here up in the New England area, 10 locations across New England, and that's where I live. I live in Connecticut. But Josh is planting a church down in Florida as well, another church plant from Next Level Church to be down in Florida in the Tampa area. So if you're in the Tampa area, check out Next Level Church. But Josh is a great guy. He's got a new book out. It's called It's Not Over, Leaving Behind Disappointment and Learning to Dream Again. It's a must read if you are going through a difficult season of life. Josh writes so beautifully in this book about learning to dream again. You'll really love that. He also has a podcast out called the Joshua Gagnon Leadership Podcast, which I've tuned in and listened to, and it's a really, really good podcast. I love just devouring leadership stuff, whether it's books, podcasts, articles. I'm a big leadership guy and have been the last few years. My new book is on leadership. So just excited to talk to Josh today. You will love hearing what he has to say. Take a listen to our conversation with New England Patriot, Boston Red Sox diehard fan, Joshua Gagnon, Next Level Church pastor, joining us here on Sports Spectrum. Josh Gagnon, welcome to Sports Spectrum.
It's an honor to be here, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's so good to talk to you. I love looking back and seeing, I'm like, how do I know Josh? I know we've connected through social media, and it was actually a wonderful thing that you did. You sent me an email when I decided to leave ESPN, and just that connection, I was like, man, that's just so nice of someone to do that. And ironically, I had already known about you. I've been listening to the Leadership Podcast for a few years now. But let's start with the book. I think that's great to just go right to now. And I'm excited for your book, man. I'm looking forward to really diving into it. It's called It's Not Over, Leaving Behind Disappointment and Learning to Dream Again. Tell us about the book, why you decided to write it.
Yeah, I think we all struggle with disappointment at every stage in life. And so for me, writing a book on how to overcome disappointment, how to dream that tomorrow doesn't have to just be a replication of yesterday. You know, so many of us, whether it's in the sports world or just in the everyday life, you know, our yesterdays have a good way of defining for us, unfortunately, our tomorrows. And so I wanted to write a book, not just to challenge people to dream, but to help people overcome the disasters of yesterday, the brokenness of yesterday, the resistance we all face. And so that 10,000-foot view of the book is, hey, I know this. I know that far too many people are living with just a skeleton of what they once hoped for. Yeah. You know, they had these huge dreams. They had these hopes. They believed they could accomplish something. And they look at their life now and really they're limping compared to running into what they had one day hoped they could see. And so for me, it's just this challenge that it's not over, that God does not call us to live a life limping into tomorrow, but we can sprint into our future knowing that our God is faithful. And so that's the 10,000-foot view. I know we'll dig a little bit more into it, but that's the big overview.
Well, that's the whole gospel, right? I mean, there's a lot of people. I had this view of Christianity when I was growing up. You know, I went to a church that talked about God a little bit, but I never was really introduced to Jesus or a relationship. And you always thought you had to kind of clean yourself up, and that, you know, mistakes that you have made, there's no way that I could move forward in any kind of walk with God or go to a church because of the mistakes I've made. And the gospel says, no, come. Jesus says, come. And I'm here with you right in the middle of your mess. That's kind of where you're going with this, right? That it's not over, and like, bring your mess and let's start afresh here.
Yeah, I was sitting in, really the book was born out of a moment. I was sitting in a prison, matter of fact, with a friend of mine who had just went to prison, did something he's certainly not proud of. And I was sitting in this prison waiting. I was his first visitor ever. And we got done talking. And when I hugged him for that 3-second hug you can make at the end of a visit, I looked at him. I said, it's not over. And he looked back at me and he said, I'm not sure I believe that. And when I left that conversation, I was driving home and I was seeing people pump gas at gas stations and mowing their lawn. And man, I just feel like the Spirit of God just laid on my heart this reality that we're not all living behind bars, but we are, many of us, living, believing that the best may not be ahead. And when it comes to dreams, Jason, one of the things I'm real passionate about is a dream doesn't always have to be something radical, right? It doesn't have to be something where we go and end world hunger. Now, that's a great dream to have. Sure. But I don't know about you, but a lot of dreams inside of me is overcoming insecurity. You know, I struggle with a great deal of insecurity, forgiving someone who I know, you know, you wrote the book on forgiveness, right? And so forgiving people who have hurt us. I mean, that's a dream in my heart to not live with bitterness. And so, you know, for this book, it's not just these big dreams we're chasing, which are awesome. It's also these everyday dreams inside of us, these addictions we're trying to overcome, these dreams inside of us that we at times submit to, and we start living as if it's over. And so, yeah, on that drive home, I was just passionate about writing a book where I could inspire people to believe that we do not have to live in the shattered hopes of yesterday, but God can redeem them.
So there's a lot of generalities in hearing that dream again words. And then I'm thinking about the people who I interact with every day, including even some in my family, where they're in jobs that they don't enjoy. They're stuck having to pay bills and support families, doing things that they just don't enjoy as far as work goes. And they're like, yeah, that's great. Telling me to start to dream again, Josh Gagnon, but I don't even know how I can implement that into my life. Talk to that person, encourage them, and how they can learn to really, quote unquote, dream again.
Yeah, we face discouragement and despair, and it causes us to feel that way, right? Like I don't even want to dream again because of the fear of having my heart broken, or where do I even start? I remember when I was writing this book 3 years ago, I had an agent reach out to me, and the agent says, hey, listen, Next Level Church is 10 locations across New England, so on and so forth. Have you thought about writing a book? And I was like, man, I've thought about it. There's a fire in my belly to do it. I'm just not sure I'm good enough. And this agent talked me into going after a book deal, and we went after every major publisher in the nation, and every single publisher said no. They said, like, the Christian market in New England is not where you want to write books. We're not going to get behind this guy. Yeah. And I remember getting in the shower and just crying my eyes out, right? And I didn't even tell my wife for a week later, just because I didn't want to face that rejection and that pain. And a year later, Jason, I get an email that says from another agent. This is a large agent. I worked with a lot of, matter of fact, I'm not going to name them, but a lot of athletes that the listeners would know in writing books. And they reached out and said, hey, listen, have you thought about writing a book? And I didn't get back to that email for 1 year because I was so afraid of chasing after that dream again and having to deal with that rejection and that pain. And so I would say to those people that are having a hard time, don't know where to start, we know when God's put something in our belly to chase after. And I think living in disobedience often is crippling when God has called us to the freedom of chasing after what he's called us to, even even if it doesn't always feel easy. I would challenge everybody listening to remember, like David and Goliath, right? We love that story. Like what athlete, what person doesn't love the story of David and Goliath? We love the underdog, right? The Cinderella story. Well, here we have David in the field looking after sheep. Talk about a Cinderella story, right? David's looking after sheep, fighting off bears and lions. His family's being chosen to be the next king, and he's not even there. And then we find out that David goes on to be the one who defeats Goliath. What do we learn? We learn that God was preparing David for what he already prepared for David, that David was in a shepherd's field. It couldn't have felt very purposeful, but God was doing more in him so that someday he could take down Goliath and do more through him. And so for all of those listening, man, you may feel like you're in a valley, but never underestimate what God's doing in you right now so that he can do through you more than you could ever imagine.
That's really good, Josh Gagnon. And it's funny because you talked about rejection. You know, the new book that I'm writing, it's on leadership, which I really am excited for you to read because you're a leadership guy. And that got rejected by the first 15 publishers too. And I'm with you, man. I was like, I guess I'm not meant to write this book. And then all it took was one. And it took a little courage to kind of pursue that and go forward, like you said. So I'm just speaking for me. Maybe the listeners can relate too, but I can completely relate to that because that is crushing and crippling in a lot of ways. And I wrote about that, you know, in my book. And I'm sure the idea of continuing to dream again, man, that is hard when rejection comes your way. And maybe people are listening like, listen, Romano and Gagnon, we're not authors here. But at the same time, that rejection can come in so many different ways, whether it's a job that you're going for, whether it's a person that you're pursuing in a relationship, and to keep moving forward at some point. Sometimes you need that space. But for you, Josh, can you elaborate more on just keeping moving forward in the face of just because fear can cripple you if you let it?
Yeah, the Bible says in Proverbs 13:12 that hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I've felt that before. And I know, I'm sure when you've got all those no's, you felt that.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
And like you just said, Jason, those people who are in that relationship or chasing after that college dream or chasing after that professional dream or chasing after that addiction to be broken, man, when you fail over and over again or hit up against resistance, that hope that you had when it's deferred, it makes your heart sick. One of the things that was cool in writing this book is I looked up the word disappointment and discouragement, and I found that in the definition of the word discouragement, the word expectation is always there.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by that because really our disappointment comes from something we expected that didn't end up happening. Right? It's like that expectation you had, that hope you had, it doesn't happen. You feel broken, you feel hurt. And that's when you face that resistance. And I would say that resistance, unfortunately, like this is the last thing anybody wants to hear.
Right.
But resistance is part of the recipe in order to soar. Like there is no such thing as soaring outside of resistance. A plane does not soar outside of resistance. And I believe that pain is a leader's constant companion. That the more pain you're willing to endure will directly result in the levels that you're able to go. And I think that for those listening today, you're facing resistance. You're hitting up against a wall. Understand that wall may be the very thing that when you break through it causes you to soar in a way you never could. Back to this book. I mean, if I didn't get all those no's, this book wouldn't be what it is today. And I can tell you right now, it's so much easier looking back, but I can tell you right now, I'm so thankful that I got no's because this book is a much better read now because I faced the resistance.
We'll get back to our conversation with Joshua Gagnon in just a moment. But I want to take a second to tell you about Compassion International and how you can make a lasting impact on a child's life using your influence for good by sponsoring them through Compassion and teaming up with Compassion as a partner in ministry. We love having them as partners in our ministry, and we love partnering with them in the great work that they're doing, releasing children from poverty. The website to check out all of the information that they have going on is compassion.com/sports spectrum. Compassion.com/sports spectrum. Compassion has over 66 years of experience sharing Jesus with every child that comes through the program. Over 2 million children known, loved, and protected. 7,000 plus church partners in 25 countries. Those are just numbers and statistics, but the impact that they're making right now, releasing children from poverty, giving food, education, medical care, vocational training to these children in need, all being done with the love of Jesus. That's what it's all about. Check out the website, compassion.com/sports spectrum, and team up with Compassion in sponsoring a child in Jesus' name. We're also thankful to our sponsors, Water Mission, for being a part of Sports Spectrum and the Sports Spectrum podcast, a nonprofit Christian engineering ministry that fights the global water crisis with safe water, sanitation, and hygiene solutions in developing countries and disaster areas. This organization has served more than 5 million people in 56 countries, and right now they're working to stop the global spread of COVID-19, providing urgently needed safe water, sanitation, and hygiene solutions to refugee settlements and other vulnerable communities. Learn about the great work they're doing by checking out their website, watermission.org. Watermission.org. Learn more, pray with them, and help them to fight the global water crisis. Let's get back to our conversation with Joshua Gagnon, lead pastor and founder of Next Level Church, right here on Sports Spectrum. Let's intersect the conversation with sports. We haven't really talked sports, although a lot of what we talked about relates to the sports world. But you're a hooper. You're a guy that loves to ball, and I love that. And I love that you're a New England guy, I presume, as well, having played ball at Southern Vermont. Probably a Celtics fan. Is that fair to say?
I'm a huge Celtics fan. I've been a Celtics fan since a little boy, sliding across the kitchen floor screaming yes.
There it is. Same boat here. I've been a Celtics fan since probably 81, 82. I'm a little older than you, but love the Celtics. Tell me about your love for sports and kind of growing up in New England, and certainly your love for basketball.
Yeah, man, I've played sports my entire life. I was a jock in school. I often say the only reason I went to school, the only reason school kept me was because if I didn't show up, I couldn't play in sports. And so right. For me, keep your grades up or you can't play in sports was the only reason I passed classes. And I'm not proud of that. I'm just being honest. So yeah, sports for me was everything. I ran track. I did everything. But basketball was my passion. Unfortunately, I'm only 5'9", and so it wasn't the best match, but I was able to play sports at a college level, played a little bit in Canada and some little professional leagues in basketball. So yeah, I can shoot the rock. And I can tell you this though, honestly, sports for me was a major asset when it comes to even pastoring and leadership today. I mean, the resistance you face in sports, tell me that doesn't just translate to the resistance you face in life. I went for a run this morning. Now I'm a lot older now. So when I'm running outside right now, it looks like an ambulance should stop and help me. They're like, who's this wounded dude running down the road? You know what I mean? Like, they're like, what's going on? But let me tell you, I ran today and I went 4 miles and I wasn't going to stop. And when I look at that DNA of who I was, that was placed in me by coaches throughout my entire life. Yeah. And then when I look at writing a book and not giving up and planting a church in the least church region of America and not giving up, a lot of what was built in my DNA of who I am today, I believe was built in the sports arena. Coaches that poured into me resilience, I always hear my coach screaming, your body's going to give up way before your mind. Your body's going to give up before your mind. Stay strong, and I think about that still at my age while I'm running. And so, yeah, sports has just been a huge part of my life.
Let me just rewind for a second. You went for a run this morning. Now, I'm guessing because I live in Connecticut and I went outside this morning and it's about 20 degrees. What are you doing running outside right now, Josh? Go find a gym.
I'm in Florida right now.
Oh, that's right. We talked about that and my mind went blank. You're in Florida.
I'm in Florida right now, but I would be in a gym if I was back home for sure.
Yeah, you're not one of those crazies that are running outside in 10-degree weather, right?
No, not at all. Not that guy.
Where's faith for you, Josh? Did you grow up as a believer?
Yeah, I grew up going to church. My mom and dad would take me when I started playing basketball. Of course, playing in Junior Olympics and AAU, and I didn't go to church all throughout high school. Of course, I didn't go to church all throughout college. Just playing sports on the weekends, and so I would say that I grew up going to church, had faith, but throughout high school, throughout college, didn't really place God as a priority in my life. And when I get home from, I was in Canada, working towards playing ball, and my dad got sick. And I came home to run the family company. And that's when my mom said, hey, would you come to church with me? And so I went to church with my mom, and I enjoyed it, started to commit my life to Christ all over again, started running the soundboard at the church because I didn't go to Bible school the traditional way. I started taking online classes. I was sweeping the floor, and then someone came up to me and they're like, hey, have you ever thought of running a small group? And I was like, I could, I guess, and they're like, let's do that. So I started running a small group, and next thing you know, someone said, have you ever thought about starting a church? And I could honestly say I'd never thought about it a day in my lifetime. Yeah. And so that small group grew into, well, to God be the glory, thousands of people today.
Yeah, I mean, the Northeast, too. I've lived in the Northeast my whole life. I moved from New York to Connecticut and have been up here, and I became a believer when I was in Connecticut about 18 years ago. And I didn't really realize this until I started doing church, or church leadership, I should say, and becoming an elder at my church and speaking a little bit, that it's a tough place. And all the different areas, I think those listening, we have a lot of listeners who are in the South and then the Bible Belt. And up here in the Northeast, it's just different. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, through your experiences, the gospel doesn't change, right? And so why in your mind has it been so hard so difficult, I guess, to see people come to Jesus, I guess, to be quite blunt about it, up in the Northeast, but at the same time, you're seeing it thrive. Something that you've done has penetrated and broken that mold of the fact that this isn't a well-churched area up here. In fact, it's probably the least churched area. What has worked? What have you seen that's worked?
Yeah, it is the least churched region of America. I think a lot of people have walked away from the church because for years the church has stood for what it's against rather than what it's for, right? We stand with picking signs and we tell everybody what we're against. Even growing up in church myself, if I could just be quite honest, it always felt like what God was against. But I also believe that God wants us to stand for what he's for. And so, I don't know if there's a secret recipe, hard work and grit, not giving up, facing resistance and just, I do believe there's a such thing as hard work and going after it. But I also think that from day one, we talked about who God was in his character and what he's for. We don't talk about what God's against. Sure, we talk about sin and we understand that we want to live righteous before God. But, I don't know about you, Jason, but when I understand the character of God in the love of God and how God adores me, man, that helps me. That helps me want to make my Father in heaven proud. And so I think for us, where we are, Jason, I think a lot of churches focus on religion, rules and regulation, and we focus on a relationship with Jesus. And there's many, many great churches. You're a part of one, and there's so many great churches throughout New England that are growing. But there surely is the least church region of our country, and they say it's where church planters go to die. And hopefully our story will inspire some people to go there.
Okay, so going back and forth here with sports, who are your guys? Who were the guys as a kid? For me, grew up in New England, Albany, New York area, so it's kind of upstate New York, not New England really, but it is. I was a Larry Bird guy, still am to this day, sports hero. Darryl Strawberry, big Mets fan, and somebody from the Cowboys, Tony Dorsett and Danny White, which you may or may not remember. So those guys were my guys. Who were your guys?
Yeah, Larry Bird, of course, right? I mean, growing up in New England, being a Celtics boy, Larry Bird, loved Larry. Reggie Lewis was a huge, huge fan of Reggie. Ron Mercer, remember him?
I do, yeah. Yeah.
You got this tattoo.
Oh, look at you. I'm watching this for those listening. He's got a tattoo on his left shoulder of a hoop, just like Ron Mercer, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's from him.
They got rid of him too early, by the way, the Celtics. We could talk hours about that, right?
Yeah. So, back in the day, those are my guys. Of course, the Patriots, just a huge Pats fan. And, yeah, I mean, listen, I haven't missed a Patriots game in over 20 years. And that's no exaggeration. I haven't missed a Patriots game in over 20 years. And so, yeah, I love sports. I love faith, and I love what you do. I love how you tie those two worlds together. Yeah. I think it's a much needed reality, and we learn so much. We can parallel those two worlds so well.
So true. And I bet on Sundays when the Patriots are playing at 1:00, your sermons are a little shorter. Is that fair?
Yeah, let's just say we move a little quicker through what we have to say. being able to record the games, everybody knows I shut my phone off. And you're not telling me the score until I'm getting home and finding it out myself. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Technology is so great, but isn't that the worst? Is not only if somebody's telling you the score of a game because you're recording it and you don't want to know, but then just back and forth. A lot of people, I know people who all they do during games is text with people about the game. And I'm like, no, I don't want to talk to anybody until the game's over. And even if the game's over, if they lose, I don't want to talk to anybody for a couple days about that. Just stay away. Why are you texting me? Are you the same way?
Everybody's always like, you want to come over to watch the game? I've never gone to anybody's house to watch the game. No, I don't. You don't want me at your house to watch the game because
that's funny.
You may want another pastor if I come to your house to watch the game.
And sports is like that, man. It turns us into crazy people, right?
I'll be honest. It brings out the worst in me. That's for sure.
Oh, it's so true. Josh Gagnon is our guest here on Sports Spectrum. A couple more questions with Josh. I like asking this question to pastors because you're doing so much pouring into others. And that's really when you're the lead pastor, when you're the founding pastor, everybody's turning to you and saying, Pastor Josh, help me. Pastor Josh, I need this. Pastor Josh, what do you think of this? How are you staying poured into? What's your rhythm? Certainly your relationship with the Lord is priority number one. And I know even for me, working in ministry, working in the sports ministry world that I've been in the last couple of years, that can mistakenly become idolatry when I think that that's my time with the Lord, when it's not. It's just working through what we're doing to tell people about the Lord, but that's not my time. So how do you manage that as a pastor, staying poured into?
Yeah, that's a good point because we're writing messages, or I'm writing messages and writing books, and I can't make that my time with the Lord. So when I go for a run like we just talked about, I'll be honest. One of the reasons I run, maybe the major reason I run, is because in that moment I'm stuck in that place doing that same thing, and I just talk to Jesus. Just while I'm running, I'm praying for my entire staff. I'm praying for my family. I'm praying over different things, and so that's been a priority in my life. It's not so much that I enjoy running, but it's been a thing that forces me to stay disciplined in my walk with Jesus. I like to journal. I write a lot in my journal just about my feelings, and I find that when I start writing and I start getting into the emotion of who I am, man, I meet Jesus real close to me in those moments. And and then there's other people that pour into me. In my book, I talk about how there's different types of relationships that we all encounter every single day. I talk about how there's these relationships that are these people in our life that are zombies, and the zombies in our life are there, and we have to recognize them because they often try to lead us down wrong paths. I talk about how there's vampires. Vampires are people in our life that always kind of suck the joy out of us. After you hang out with them, you're like, man, I feel empty. They're always bringing up the negative. And then I move toward to how there's sidekicks in all of our lives, and those are the Robins in our life to Batman. And I would say the sidekicks in my life pour into me. Those are people that I place around me that speak into me. They're not yes men, but they are people who pour into my dream. I like to say this, Jason, never allow someone to speak into your dreams unless they're willing to sweat into them with you. And so the sidekicks are people who speak into me, they pour into me, they correct me, they encourage me, they challenge me, but they're also people who are sweating on the battlefield with me. They're not in the stands with ketchup and mustard on their face screaming at me while I'm on the field playing, right? Isn't it funny that those are the people we all pay attention to, the people in the stands screaming at the players. But the reality is those people on the field sweating with me, I let them speak into me and challenge me and help me grow. And the last person in the book we talk about is heroes. And heroes are those people who are living their life today in a way that you hope to someday live your life. And so typically those are people older in age that are just living a life you hope to someday live with. And I've got some heroes in my life who have amazing marriages and financially are winning in their faith. And I make sure Jennifer and myself, my wife and me, we get around them and we sit in their presence and we talk with them and we learn from them. And so, yeah, for me, that's how I get poured into, are those sidekicks and those heroes in my life. And I try to put guardrails around the zombies and the vampires. And I know in the sports world, there's so many voices being thrown at everybody that it's important to understand who we should listen to and not listen to.
That's really, really good stuff there from Josh Gagnon. Again, the new book is called It's Not Over, Leaving Behind Disappointment and Learning to Dream Again. All right, last question. We ask this to all of our guests here on Sports Spectrum. What is the Lord teaching you right now? What are you learning from him? The season of life that you're in, he teaches us something new every day. You got this new book out. Life's going well. You're planting churches in Florida. I mean, just jealousy reaping and seeping through my bones as I say that out loud. Josh Gagnon, what are you learning from the Lord right now?
Yeah, I'm learning that if I trust him to be faithful, that I'll be okay. That when you're releasing a book, Jason, and you know this, and all of our listeners have dreams in their heart. Sometimes you take the burden upon yourself in almost in an unfair way. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to learn that my Heavenly Father, he's got me, and that my job is faithfulness and his job is fruitfulness. Let me end with just this one thought. Yeah. My kids love Lego sets, and we go into the Lego store and they ask me, they said, Dad, can we buy this Lego set? And I looked at it, it said 4,124 pieces. I'm like, are you kidding me? I just wiped applesauce off your face. Like, are you joking? And so they said, Dad, look at it. Now, Jason, the outside of a Lego box, it looks perfect, right? The picture's done. Yep. It looks so glamorous. Well, we get home and what do? Of course, we open up the box and all the pieces fall to the table. And it's in that moment we're reminded that these are just pieces we have to now put together in order to see that picture. Jason, when God hands somebody a dream, whether it's to forgive somebody, whether it's to overcome an addiction, whether it's to play sports somewhere, whether it's to start a business, God gives us that dream in our heart. We can see that picture just like the outside of a Lego box. It's an outside of a Lego box experience in our heart. We see it. But then God hands us 4,124 pieces and he says, be faithful, fight through the resistance, trust me when you fear, walk in peace. Continue to trust me, and piece by piece put together that dream in your heart. And so for me, I always expect God to do so much in the immediate, and I underestimate what he can do in the ultimate of faithfulness. So what's God teaching me? Pick up the next piece, Josh. Stop trying to think that puzzle can become a reality today. Just pick up the next piece by piece. If you are faithful, I will be fruitful, and I will be fruitful in building that dream in your heart. But you've got to be faithful.
So good there. Josh Gagnon, lead pastor, founder, Next Level Church in New Hampshire. If you're up in the New England area, check them out. Look it up and find out where they are, especially, I guess, if you're in Florida now, too. You can look up Next Level Church and find out. Where in Florida are you guys, Josh?
Tampa.
In Tampa. Perfect. Well, I'll be at Tampa next year for the Super Bowl, and my brother lives in Tampa, so we get to come hang out down in Tampa at Next Level Church in Florida, too.
Be good to watch the Pats there next year, won't it?
I'm not a Patriot fan, so you're asking the wrong person. I love the Patriot guys. Like Slater is a great dude, Matthew Slater. And there's so many great players. The McCourty brothers we had on this show, and we love a lot of those guys. But I'm a Cowboys guy, so that's just been my team. I'm never changing, Josh. I can't.
Wow, I feel pretty bitter. Right? I got to read your book on forgiveness right now. I got to read your book on forgiveness.
That's why I wrote it, man. Because I wrote it for me too. Because I got to forgive all these people who have problems with me being a Cowboy fan. Josh, this has been great, man. The new book again. It's Not Over: Leaving Behind Disappointment, Learning to Dream Again. It's available everywhere books are found. Thanks for being here, brother. I appreciate you, and let's do it again.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Great stuff there from Josh Gagnon, lead pastor and founder of Next Level Church in New Hampshire. If you're in the New England area or down in Tampa, Florida, you can learn more about Next Level Church by simply going to nextlevel.church, nextlevel.church, and Josh's new book, which I'm really excited to dive into and implement a lot of the principles into my life. It's called It's Not Over: Leaving Behind Disappointment and Learning to Dream Again. It's available everywhere books are found, including Amazon and Books A Million, you name it, Barnes & Noble. You can get Josh Gagnon's new book, It's Not Over. Many thanks to Josh for joining us here on Sports Spectrum. Many thanks to our sponsors, Compassion International, as well. You can check out their website, compassion.com/sports spectrum, to learn how you can help release a child from poverty today. Compassion.com/sports spectrum. And many thanks to you for listening. Really, we love that you guys check out the podcast, that you've downloaded, subscribed, that you've left reviews, that you've told others about the podcast, tweeting at us, posting on Facebook and Instagram. We're so grateful. We're so thankful. Do us a favor and check out our website as well, sportspectrum.com. That's the home base for all of our content here at Sports Spectrum. Lots of great stuff there. Check it out, sportspectrum.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you you next time right here on Sports Spectrum's podcast. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.